We're talking about Casgevy, the very first FDA-approved therapy that uses the revolutionary CRISPR gene editing technology.
That's right. Our mission today is to really unpack that entire story. We want to go past the headlines and understand exactly how this gene spell check actually works.
And what the process demands from a patient, right? Because it's not simple.
Not at all. And then, most critically, what the early data on the global rollout
Mm.
tells us about the sheer challenge of, well, of scaling this cure.
Okay, so for our sources today, we have a stack of clinical notes detailing the mechanism of action, the FDA's dual approval documents, and some really detailed reports on the patient populations.
And we also have the initial global rollout figures, which give us a stark reality check on adoption through the third quarter of 2025.
So to start, let's set the stakes. For hundreds of thousands of people, the fight against sickle cell disease, or SCD, has been this brutal, grinding, lifelong struggle.
The reality was, well, it was defined by constant dependence on the medical system.
Right.
And with a huge physical and emotional cost. I mean,
Yeah.
the standard approach was just intense management, all designed to prevent fatal crises.
And that often meant blood transfusions, right?
Yes, very often. Blood transfusions about every 3 weeks.
Every 3 weeks. So your entire life is structured around this procedure just to keep enough functional red blood cells in your system to survive.
It is. It's a massive commitment, and it's physically draining. The whole point of the transfusion is to basically dilute the concentration of those abnormal sickled cells.
To just drown them out.
Exactly. But that's just the maintenance phase. The real terror of the disease comes with the pain crises.
The vaso-occlusive crises. That's where the cells actually clog the blood vessels.
Right. And when those happen, the pain is just, it's agonizing. Patients describe it like lightning moving through their bones.
And how do you even manage that kind of pain?
It requires powerful opioids. We're talking morphine shots, usually in the ER because, over-the-counter stuff just won't touch it.
Wow.
And on top of that, these patients are highly susceptible to infections. So they're often on constant antibiotics because a simple cold can become fatal fast.
So you're fighting the disease, you're fighting this excruciating pain, and you're fighting the constant threat of infection. It sounds like a life lived entirely on high alert.
That's precisely it. One of our sources really emphasized that this is just how most people with SCD were expected to live forever.
And the root of all this suffering is such a tiny, tiny genetic flaw. Can you help us contextualize the scale of this problem?
Sure. It all comes down to a faulty gene, the HBB gene. If a child gets 2 copies of this glitch, one from each parent, they develop the disease.
And the number of people who are carriers, who just have one copy, is surprisingly large in the U.S., isn't it?
It is. About 8% of Americans who carry that HBB glitch.
8%.
Yeah. And when we talk about the actual disease burden, the people with 2 copies, we're tracking around 120,000 cases in the U.S. alone. An ultra-precise genome editor. We're not using blunt tools anymore. This is like a find and replace software for DNA.
So if sickle cell is a genetic typo, what does that typo actually do at the cellular level?
That's a great question. The HBB gene tells the body how to build hemoglobin, the protein that carries oxygen in your red blood cells.
Okay.
The typo causes abnormal hemoglobin. And here's the key part. When those blood cells release their oxygen, that faulty hemoglobin clumps together. It crystallizes inside the cell.
Ah, so that crystallization is what deforms the cell into that sickle shape.
Exactly. And that's what causes it to get stuck and clog blood vessels. The whole dangerous cascade starts right there.
So Casgevy interrupts that. Walk us through this step by step. How do they do this genetic surgery?
Okay, so the journey begins outside the body. First, they have to extract the patient's own hematopoietic stem cells.
So these are the foundational cells in the bone marrow, the ones that create all your blood components.
Precisely. You take those cells out, and once they're safely in a specialized lab, the editing begins. They target that broken HBB gene.
And how do they find the exact spot?
They use something called a tiny guide RNA. You can think of it like a GPS system that locks onto the precise location of the error in the gene sequence.
So the GPS finds the typo. Then what?
Then the CRISPR component, these specialized molecular scissors, comes in. It slices the DNA right at that spot, effectively cutting out the typo.
And it pastes in the correct version.
It enables the cell's own natural repair mechanisms to step in and use the correct letters to heal the gene. Functional blood-producing factory. No more cell clogs, and critically, no more need for those tri-weekly blood transfusions.
That transition is just astounding.
Yeah.
Which brings us to the next challenge, getting this from the lab into the clinic. Let's talk about the approvals and the reality of the patient experience.
The FDA milestone was just last December. And what really underscored the power of this platform was that the FDA actually granted 2 approvals at the same time.
It wasn't just for sickle cell disease, was it?
Correct. They also approved it for patients with another serious blood disorder, beta thalassemia.
Which shows how adaptable the treatment is. What's the link there? Why does it work for both?
They're both what we call hemoglobinopathies. They're different, but both involve the body struggling to make functional hemoglobin. In thalassemia, the body can't produce enough of it, leading to severe anemia.
So the same dependence on lifelong transfusions.
Exactly. It's rarer in the U.S., about 2,600 people, but the underlying genetic machinery that needs fixing is similar enough for Casgevy to work for both.
And in terms of patient scope, who is eligible for this right now?
Currently, it's approved for patients age 12 and up. The clinical trials had tremendous success with adolescents. Treatment for younger children is still in the works.
Okay, now let's talk about the big trade-off. You mentioned the new corrected cells need space to grow. Wait, are you telling me the price for this cure is that the patient has to undergo chemotherapy first?
That is the central, unavoidable hurdle, and it's a huge one. Before those corrected cells can be reinfused, the patient has to go through what's called myeloablative chemotherapy.
To completely wipe out the old faulty bone marrow.
You have to. If you don't make space by destroying the original factory, the new stem cells won't take hold.
And chemotherapy is, it's harsh.
It's highly challenging.
Mm.
That stage causes severe side effects, intense nausea, significant pain, guaranteed hair loss. You're basically putting the patient through a temporary but very serious health crisis to get to the cure.
But once the new cells are infused...
Then the side effects become much milder, usually just flu-like stuff while the new blood production ramps up.
So it's a rough path, but it leads to a permanent fix, which is a profound difference. Okay, so given the impact and the complexity, how quickly is the world actually adopting this?
This is where we hit the hard wall of logistics and, frankly, finance. So when you factor in that cost and the logistical difficulty, the chemo, the specialized labs, what does our data say about who is actually getting treated?
The contrast is, well, shocking. According to our latest data, through the end of the third quarter of 2025, only 39 individuals worldwide have received the Casgevy infusion.
39. That's it, compared to the tens of thousands who need it.
But it's not the only bottleneck. The physical infrastructure required is immense.
You can't just do this at any hospital.
No, not at all. You need highly specialized centers, facilities that can handle complex cell extraction, the chemo, and run the sophisticated labs to edit the cells safely.
We know 10 of those 39 patients got the infusion in the third quarter alone, so that shows a real acceleration.
So the ramp-up is starting, and this is a global story, not just a U.S. thing. Where else is it taking hold?
It's rolling out internationally, yes. Early adopters include Qatar and several countries in Europe. That's a huge step.
Absolutely critical. And what about the status of those 39 patients? Any safety concerns coming up?
The science is holding up. The trials keep humming along with solid momentum, and importantly, our sources say no major hiccups reported. Now the world is confronting the monumental logistical and economic challenge of delivering it.
We noted that 8% of Americans carry the genetic glitch for sickle cell, and 120,000 are affected by the disease in the U.S. When you hold those figures up against the fact that only 39 people worldwide have received this cure as of September 2025, what does that massive gap tell us about the future logistical and financial challenge of scaling this technology to everyone who desperately needs it?